Imagine you are standing outside on the coldest night of the year. There is no house behind you, no heater, no warm jacket, no weather forecast warning you that a storm is coming. The ground is frozen, the trees are bare, and somewhere beyond the darkness, hungry animals are moving through the snow. Now imagine that you have never experienced winter before. Not the winter we know today, with roads, insulated homes, hot food and electricity. A winter so cold that one mistake could kill you. For ancient humans, surviving the cold was never just about being tough. It was about learning. Learning what to wear, where to sleep, what to eat, and most importantly, learning that winter had to be prepared for long before the first snow arrived. But how did humans survive their first winters? And what happened when the world suddenly became too cold for the bodies they were born with? The answer may explain why humans became one of the most adaptable species on Earth. First, there is something important to understand. Humans did not begin in frozen landscapes. Our earliest ancestors evolved in Africa, where warm temperatures were far more common. Their bodies were not covered in thick fur like wolves or bears. They had relatively bare skin. They could sweat efficiently, and they were built for surviving heat, not standing outside in freezing wind. So when some human groups slowly moved into colder regions, winter created a problem their bodies could not solve alone. Cold air pulled heat away from their skin. Freezing rain soaked their bodies. Strong winds made the temperature feel even lower. And once the body lost too much heat, muscles became weak, thinking became slower, and survival became much harder. Ancient humans could not simply wait for spring. They had to change their way of living. Their first great weapon against winter was probably fire. But fire was not as simple as striking a match. For much of human history, creating fire whenever you want it was extremely difficult. A group may have depended on a natural fire started by lightning. They had to keep the flames alive for as long as possible. If the flames went out during a freezing storm, replacing it might not be easy. That meant fire had to be protected, wood had to be collected, dry fuel had to be stored, and someone may have needed to watch the flames even while others slept. A fire gave warmth, but it also gave much more. It provided light after sunset, it kept many dangerous animals at a distance, and it allowed people to cook food. Cooking made some foods easier to chew and digest. It helped unlock more energy from meat and plants. During winter, when every calorie mattered, that extra energy could mean the difference between surviving and starving. But fire alone was not enough. A fire only warms the space around it. Step too far away and the cold returns. So ancient humans also had to find shelters. Sometimes they used caves and rock overhangs, but caves were not available everywhere, and even a cave could be cold, wet, and dangerous. In open landscapes, people may have built shelters from branches, wooden poles, grass, animal hides, and whatever materials were available. These shelters were not comfortable homes, they were survival tools. A low shelter could trap more body heat. A thick layer of grass or leaves could reduce the cold coming from the ground. Animal skins could block wind and rain, and sleeping close together allowed people to share warmth. In winter, being part of a group was not just socially useful, it was a form of protection. An isolated person had to gather food alone, keep a fire alive alone, watch for predators alone, and stay warm alone. A group could divide these tasks. Some people could search for wood, others could hunt, others could care for children, and someone could remain near the shelter to protect the fire. Winter may have made cooperation more important than ever. But warmth was only half the problem. The other problem was food. Winter changed the entire landscape. Many plants disappeared, fruits became rare, insects were harder to find, and animals either migrated, hid, or became more difficult to hunt. Ancient humans had to understand the seasons. They needed to know which foods would still be available after the weather changed. They may have dried meat when food was plentiful. They could collect nuts, seeds, and edible plants before winter arrived.
Some groups may have stored food in protected places, but food storage was difficult. Without modern containers or refrigeration, food could rot, become wet, or be stolen by animals. So hunting remained important. And winter hunting could be extremely dangerous. Snow made movement harder, cold weakened the body. A failed hunt meant wasted energy, and a serious injury could become deadly when there was no hospital nearby. Still, winter also left clues. Animal tracks could become easier to see in snow or soft ground. A group that understood the movement of animals could follow them toward food and water. Knowledge became just as important as strength. Ancient humans learned where animals traveled, which valleys offered protection from wind, which trees provided dry wood, and where water could still be found when streams froze. That knowledge was passed from one generation to the next. A child did not have to discover everything alone. Older members of the group could teach them which animal skins were warmest, how to build a shelter, how to recognize dangerous weather, how to keep a fire alive, and how to avoid wasting precious energy. This may be one of the biggest reasons humans survived. We were not the strongest animals. We were not the fastest. We did not have claws, thick fur, or powerful teeth. But we could remember, we could teach, and we could improve what the generation before us had learned. Over thousands of years, humans became better prepared for cold environments. They developed more effective clothing, they made stronger shelters, they improved hunting tools, and they learned how to survive in places that once seemed impossible. Eventually, humans spread into regions with brutal winters. They reached Europe, northern Asia, and much later even the far edges of the Arctic world. But the first winter was probably not a single event. There was no one day when humanity stepped into the snow for the first time. It happened slowly. Generation after generation, human groups moved into colder lands. Some survived, some turned back, and some may not have made it through. The humans who adapted passed their knowledge forward, and every new winter became a lesson. So how did ancient humans survive their first winter? Not because they were naturally built for the cold, and not because they defeated winter with one invention. They survived because they changed their behavior. They protected fire, they built shelters, they wore animal skins, they searched for food, they stayed close together and shared knowledge. Winter forced humans to plan for a future they could not yet see. It taught them that survival was not only about what you could do today, it was about preparing for what might happen tomorrow. And perhaps that was the real turning point. The cold did not simply test ancient humans, it helped shape them. Because somewhere in a frozen landscape, beside a small fire surrounded by darkness, humans learned one of the most important lessons in our history. Nature could be stronger than any individual, but together, with knowledge, preparation, and cooperation, we could survive almost anywhere.